so good. So much brain development happening. No, not that. So the first 5 minutes of the movie, identity crisis. I was not expecting this rant to come out of this. Disney ticks me off. Unintentional, accidental murderer. I have never been so attached to a goose in my life. Hi guys, welcome back to another Nerd Rants video. As promised, we're gonna rant about Wild Robot. If you want spoiler free, I did a really quick short earlier well, I guess technically a week ago-ish. And it basically summed up all I really have to say spoiler-free wise, because I was just gushing about all the things. Because this movie was fantastic and I loved it. And it was, I said this in the short, it was not the most original, quote-unquote original story, which is fine. It doesn't have to be a super original story as long as you do it well. And they did it very, very well, and I loved it. And it was such an emotional roller coaster. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we were sitting in the theater in the and it got to the credits, and a lady behind us said she cried 8 times. In my opinion, that's excessive, but I also don't cry a lot. I can definitely see why though. It was so good. It was so good, and it was wholesome, and there was a level of dark to it, which I really appreciate. Especially, for a kids movie, we a lot of times in more modern stuff, we don't get the level of darkness that comes with the reality of something that's happening in the story. And they kind of take that out to be child friendly, but in the end it really is just worse off for the movie and for the story in general. And honestly, I feel like, yeah, it sucks that we have to, it sucks that that's a part of life, and we don't necessarily want to expose our children to that so much, but at the same time, it is something they're gonna have to learn about at some point. So there's definitely a level of discernment on how much you expose them to it at what age, and well, that's an entirely different topic. But I think it's really good to have those themes just subtly play into a kids movie. Then there's a little more level of understanding, I think, in their brain, because even though they don't fully understand it at whatever age they're at, their brain subconsciously processes that. Kids, even though they don't consciously understand a whole lot of things that are happening, they do understand what's happening, and it does affect them. That's why child abuse or whatever, and child trauma is such a big thing. And even though people are like, oh, they don't know what happened, they were whatever age. No, they do. Developmentally, they have way more neuron connections happening than we do, because they have so much potential, and so they have all of the neuron connections, and then they start weeding out the ones that don't get used. So it's crazy. I'm sorry, I just got it. I just finished the brain development module in my CGA class. Very interesting, by the way. So yeah, kids understand that, so there's an importance of having some level of that exposure to them. They're not crazy stuff like taking them to PG-13 or R-rated movies or anything like that, because that's dumb, but having those subtleties in kids' movies so that there's some level of understanding to that. And so it just sets them up, I think, more for success in understanding that, because so much of their brain gets developed in the first 5 years of their life, and what doesn't get developed never does. So it's very important to have them learn all those things. Yes, all the good things. Yes, all of the things that everyone immediately goes child appropriate, but like, they need to understand the other things too, because so much brain development happening, and I think it'll let them be better off later. Please don't take anything I say the wrong way. I am not advocating for really, really dark children's movies where there's death and gore and blah, blah, blah everywhere. No, not that. Subtle messages that are important for children to know in life should be put in there. So which involves some level of darkness, because reality is kind of a dark thing. Because we live in a very fractured world. So darkness is just a part of our reality, and so there is definitely some level of that needs to be ingrained into our children so that they understand this. I did not expect to start off with a rant. Anyway, I love this movie, and now we will get into why, and it will involve me just ranting about everything that happens. Okay. Characters, music, story, the dark, subtle themes happening. Oh, it's all wonderful. The animation is gorgeous. I just love everything. It's so good. So, this is also the world. Let's explain the world, and that'll lead into the story. So, this is some sort of post-apocalyptic world. We don't know what happened. We don't get to have any hints of what happened, really. But, obviously, geese, it's main plot, robot gets imprinted on by a baby goose. She has to raise it and get it to the point where it can fly and migrate with the other geese. Okay, so we have a scene, the geese are migrating. They fly over a flooded Golden Gate Bridge. And, oh, what else happened? There are like 2 or 3 scenes where they show, and it's these monuments, these like American monuments that are flooded, ruined, whatever. And then, to escape a storm, they fly into a dome, which seems to be where all of the people are living. So this is some sort of post-apocalyptic world. There was some huge natural disaster event that made the outside world basically unlivable. And so now humans are living in domes, which is awesome. And I love this concept, and I would totally be down to follow an entire story about, hey, what happened? What are the humans doing right now? What's life like in the domes? I would love to see that. That's nothing to do with anything that's going on right now, except the origin of the robot, Roz. That is the only thing that any of this has to do with the plot is Roz. That's where she came from. That's it. And so this whole world is happening. I love it. I would love to dive deeper into this world. But they send a shipment of helper robots, which are Rosum model robots. And so they get lost in a storm, get washed up on an island, and Roz, I can't remember her number, but Roz is the only one that survives and stays intact. Her programming to learn and imitate those around her to help her with her job of helping with different tasks and whatever else, allows her, when she gets up, to imitate the animals, which helps her survive different attacks and whatever else. And then we hit right off the gate with Roz having an identity crisis because she is on an uninhabited island full of animals that she cannot communicate with, that can't communicate with her, trying to find someone who ordered her to fulfill tasks for them. And she has no way of doing this, and the animals don't know what's going on, she doesn't know what's going on, and she gets to the point where she's having an identity crisis because she has no idea what's happening. So the first 5 minutes of the movie, identity crisis. And then she sits for, I don't know how long, they don't specify how long, but she goes into learning mode and she just sits there for however long it takes, listening to all of the animal noises around her until she can understand them and therefore communicate with the animals. Which is insane, but it is a plausible idea, and I love it. If you built a robot in that way with the programming to learn and grow to evolve and help with different things, it totally makes sense that they'd be able to learn animal languages if they sat long enough and just listened. So I love it. so she can understand all of the animals on this island. She can communicate with them now. And they all think she's a monster because they've never seen any electronics before. And so even though she can communicate with them, they're still attacking her and being like, what is happening? And very cautious and thinking she's here to kill them. This leads her to get chased by several animals, get attacked by several animals, and eventually, in this big long action sequence of her just getting chased by a dozen different things, she gets knocked down a cliff face, goes down this hill, falls, smashes into a tree, and kills a mother goose and all of the eggs except one. She has found her task to protect this egg. So she's protecting the egg because she scans it and knows there's something inside of it. Something that's alive. So she's protecting this egg. A fox tries to steal it and eat it. So they have a whole thing, and that introduces one of our main characters, who is wonderful. I love him. Manages to protect the egg. The egg hatches. Goose imprints on her. She's a mother now. And she has this wonderful interaction when she's figuring this out with an opossum mother with her 7 babies, and her just talking about motherhood to this robot who has no idea what she's talking about and doesn't understand the concept of motherhood or love or literally anything emotional. And now she has to raise this baby goose to figure out how to get it ready to migrate, as this opossum explains to her. But, now I've touched on it, but we're gonna go deeper into it now. The whole underlying dark theme that happens throughout this entire movie is the concept of death. And kind of a little bit of the food chain happening throughout, because it's a bunch of animals. It's just predators and prey running around on this island. And we have Roz, who's like, we all need to get along, and love and compassion are the way to do things. And because that's her programming, she's this compassionate helper robot. So this duality of literally just nature had taking its course around her, and everyone eating each other and attacking each other, and it leads to this beautiful picture of death in the circle of life happening throughout this movie. Like sometimes it's jokingly, where like the opossum mother's explaining this to her, and she's like, I'm the mother of 7 babies, and then there's sounds of an attack happening down below, and she goes, oh, 6 children. And then they undo it. It's like, hey, I'm actually fine, Mom. But just jokingly and also very seriously throughout this entire movie is this concept of death that comes up. And it's one of the things I really, really appreciate, because we don't really get a whole lot of that in like any children's movies anymore, because they're like, no, it's whatever, we're gonna focus on this other thing, and we're gonna be really focused on representing the minority group that, not gonna get into that. Anyway, they're so focused on other things and trying to represent and portray other things that really aren't as important, in my opinion, or important at all. And they're focusing on all of that instead of these things like death and honestly choices, like hard choices and different things that are serious and dark, and not things that we necessarily want a child to go through, but they are things that literally everyone goes through at every age. So not including that in a child's film just because it's a kid's film is not right, in my opinion, because stories are ways that we relate to things, in my experience at least. We take the characters, we take the world, we take the story, whatever is happening, and we relate to that. We instinctively put ourselves into that if there's any kind of similarity. And having that relation, even if it is fictional, it helps us feel less alone, because subconsciously, you don't know this as a child, but subconsciously, in order for someone for this story to have come to be in this way that you relate to it, someone had to write it that way, which means out there, even though you may never cross paths, even though you may never see their face, there is someone out there who understands this and relates to this and has put in the effort to put something out there that you understand, that you relate to, something that makes, I don't know if it makes you feel seen is the right terminology, but something that you can relate to and makes you feel less alone as a kid, because you're like, oh my gosh, there's this character, they're like me. And it's mostly because, oh, there's this character. And then as you get older, a lot of it, and you come to understand like the idea of authors and scriptwriters and whatever else, you're like, oh, it's not just this character, there is someone out there who understands this and has put in the work to create something that represents this, that represents, in a sense, me. And so that feeling of, one, being seen, but like being understood in one way or another. And so excluding these things that are difficult and that kids go through and that they have to deal with, and not bringing those things into a children's movie, it makes them feel less seen and makes them feel more alone, because they're like, oh, there's not even stuff like this out there that represents me and that I can relate to. And so I was not expecting this rant to come out of this, but like, kids deal with death. It sucks, it's awful, but they do. And having a movie that involves death and showing, not necessarily the normalcy, but in a way a little bit the normalcy, but also the darkness of it. And Raza's reaction to it, and how she tries to deal with it, and how she interacts with the animals and kind of makes them see it, gets them to a point later during winter to call a truce among each other. And it's a beautiful picture, and I feel like it's a very good image of death, just in nature, death. And I think it's a very good message, and I think it's really, really good that they're representing that in the movie. And they're portraying that in this movie that kids will go and see, because it's a kids' movie. And I appreciate that. I feel like part of the reason I am the way I am, more and as rational, I guess, as logical and as level-headed as I am over certain things and have this understanding of certain things, is my era of cinema, like movies, shows, whatever else, they weren't afraid to bring in those darker things. So I acquit, no, that's not the right word. I credit some of my understanding and some of my brain situation to the stories that I was able to hear and see and watch as I was as a child. Because they talked about things that were important. Can we just do that in a movie? Can we just do that in a movie for once in this generation? I mean, besides Wild Robot, like Disney specifically like ticks me off at this point. I can't anymore. Most Disney things that come out, I'm like, I don't even care. I'm not even gonna watch it. I don't give a crap. Because I don't think it's gonna be good. It's probably not gonna be well written. It's probably not gonna have the greatest story. If it's a show, it's gonna feel rushed. And it's not gonna say anything important. If it's Marvel or Star Wars, it'll probably be disjointed and senseless action. If it's a Disney movie, if it's a like Disney animated, if it's a like Disney movie, it'll be a live action remake, which I don't care. I don't need to see. They don't need to be remade because they already told this story. And in order to do it in a way that I will appreciate it, there needs to be some level of similarity to the story that's already happening, that's already been told, with enough difference that I'm not bored with it. But if you get it too different, they usually tend to go in a weird direction that's just dumb. Like, my biggest issue with the Aladdin live action remake was they made Jasmine such a freaking feminist that it was stupid. Like, they made Aladdin a little more like, I don't want to get into that and explain that. My biggest issue with the Little Mermaid was at the very, like, it was okay. The CGI was an issue, and I hated Scuttle's song. I also just didn't like Awkwafina as Scuttle, but that's besides the point. But at the very end, they take away Eric's part of the story, his hero part of the story, and just flip it into something that doesn't actually even make sense. Like, how the frick does Ariel steer the boat? And why the heck is Ursula going after Eric and not Ariel? Yes, I have my issues with it. And then there's the live action Lion King remake, which despite its animated lion flaws, I thought it was decent, but it was also almost shot for shot what the original was, so it felt like there wasn't as much of a point to it, because it's just shot for shot in most of the scenes. So there's this balance that Disney hasn't found, and they keep making live action remakes, and I'm like, no, you find the balance. Like, test this with people. Don't just assume it's going to be good because you're Disney. Unfortunately, their strategy is still working, so they don't have any reason to, like, test screen things. Anyway, and that's how we got Wish. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting into it. That's the other side of it, is the animation side of it. If they're not making live action remakes, they're making it quote unquote original animated movies, which is how we got Wish, which, don't get me started. I have an hour-long rant about it. I'll put the link in the description. Oh my gosh, we got Wish. Before that was Encanto, which was okay. I feel like that was one that did more relate to people, not me specifically. I jammed out to the music, but not to me specifically. But again, I felt like nothing really happened in that. Like, I feel like they could have done more with the story, and then they didn't. Like, they never leave the house, pretty much. They go out into the town like once for the opening song, and after that we get literally nothing outside of the house. And I feel like that got a little bland, and they could have done more with the story. The theme behind it was good, I feel like. And based on what I've heard from other people who related to that idea more, cool, yes, do more with it though. Give us a story. Give us more than just, this is a house, this is the problem we're trying to tackle. We're just gonna do that inside the house. Nothing else really happening. So I feel like that one had more potential than any of the other ones, but I feel like they just didn't use it fully. So yeah, Disney ticks me off. I would like them to slow down, put the brakes on a little bit, get some new people, I think, get some new writers, because I've had it up to here with their writers for literally everything. I'm so done with the writing for literally everything that they have created, except a select few projects. And that's because these specific people involved do it well. I want those people to do more things. Not all of the things, because Disney has way too many projects happening, but I want them to do more things. I want more of the things to be like that, like Andor, like, what are the other things? Like, okay, this is mostly, there's mostly a few good Star Wars projects at this point, like Andor, like Bad Batch, like those projects those few projects that I enjoyed. I want more of that, but I don't get more of that because Disney's writers just, they think they can literally throw dog crap into a theater and they expect people to like it because it's Disney. And I'm sorry, this is not supposed to be a rant about Disney. So yes, clearly I have my issues with Disney, and because they are kind of the front runner for children's movies at this point, because they own so much, and it's ugh. But anyway, they're the front runner for that, and that's why they tick me off so much. But then we have DreamWorks. DreamWorks is our saving grace when it comes to children's movies. Most of my favorite animated movies are from DreamWorks. They are either from like experimental era Disney or like prior, or they are from DreamWorks. That is the only two. There's one or two from Pixar that were a little more recent that I enjoyed, but mostly experimental era Disney and previously, and before, and DreamWorks. They are the children's movies that I have enjoyed. And yay, they came out with another great one, and I love it so freaking much, and it's so good, and all of the characters, they are freaking animals, but the characters are developed so well, and they have very unique characters for every single animal that you come into contact with. Even if you do not get their name, they have a very specific personality. There is a baby bunny. It's a bunny. He has like 2 lines in the entire show. Actually, it's like the same line. But anyway, he speaks like twice in the show, but he's a very specific personality. And it's just, he just goes up to whatever the threat is as this innocent little messenger of sorts and goes, "Are you trying to kill us?" Or like, "Are you here to kill us?" And then whatever answer they get, they're like, "It said no," or "It said yes." And then someone bigger comes in and plows into him. So he's basically just the annoying, like, "I'm here to alert everyone to what's happening. And I am the innocent little cute thing that is so adorable that you are going to hesitate to hurt me. And so I will act as the front runner to warn everyone else about what's happening." That is his personality. We have a beaver who he's a side character. He is a side character, but he has a very, very specific goal, and he has an entire arc that happens. He goes through, his entire goal in life is to chop down the oldest tree in the entire island. And it makes him basically the local kook who everyone laughs at because he's trying to cut through this massive tree that is literally hundreds of years old. And then by the end of the movie, it proves to be an important part of the plot. But this character is just such a side character, but he has a goal, he has a personality, he has an arc that happens, and it's just wonderful. And these are just, like, the opossum mother, love her. She is literally awesome. I love her so much. Just very much the rundown, overworked mother of 7 children who are constantly going at each other. It's so wonderful. And those are just the side characters. And then we have the 3 main characters that the entire story revolves around. Roz the robot, who we just get this huge, beautiful development of her becoming a mother and learning to feel, in a sense, as much as a robot can. Though I guess she's sort of AI since she's built to learn and evolve and whatever else. She's a little bit AI, I think. I am not an artificial intelligence geek, so I have no idea how that works. I don't know if she is categorized as AI or not. But anyway, she develops, learns, and evolves into a freaking mother who knows how to love, and it's beautiful. We have Brightbeak, who is the gosling she rescues. Growing, he is a runt, being raised by a robot, knowing he's different, not being able to make friends, having this entire arc of where the heck do I belong? Like, I don't act like other geese. I don't act like any other animal. I don't talk like any other animal. I genuinely believed you are my mother until it gets revealed by different geese that he runs into while learning to swim. Like a human, not a goose. From learning to swim, being literally socially outcast, getting bashed by every single goose in there, and then them telling him, "No, Roz killed your family." Everyone knows that. Why you actually thought she was your mother, getting literally publicly humiliated by all of these geese, getting the biggest secret of his entire life revealed to him straight to his face, that he was raised by his family's murderer, unintentional, accidental murderer. But having that, and there's just this massive argument that happens between them. He runs off. He's like, I will do this on my own. I can't do this. And I'm not going to get help from you anymore. And having that huge arc and him developing into having confidence in himself, finding a place where he belongs among the flock of geese to a point where they then trust him, and realizing, no, I don't care what happened. I don't care that she's not my biological mother. She is my mom. I love her. And then their relationship is literally the most beautiful thing. I have never been so attached to a goose in my life. I love Brightbeak. He's so good. And then, oh no, I blanked on his name. It might be Fick. I think it's just Fick. I hate that I'm blanking on his name. The fox that tried to eat Brightbeak as an egg. Ross gets him back. He gets because he gets hit hits a porcupine, and then she helps him and lets him run off. The egg hatches. He goes, I will help you teach this goose to be a goose, because you are the monster, you can help me get what I want. And then them developing and growing, and he gets attached to both of them because oh my gosh, his character development. I love this fox with a passion. He is wonderful. He goes from this cunning loner dude, guy, fox, whatever, because that's the only way he knows. And then we get hints of, like, my mom didn't really love me, didn't show how to show love to me. I was basically abandoned why I was like this. When my mother taught me to swim by kicking me into the water and just letting me figure it out, and having those hints, and then him growing and developing and kind of then having this whole found family dynamic, which is beautiful. I love found family dynamic when it's done well. So good. And him developing into, these are my people, I will protect them with my life. I don't like anyone else, but I like these two are my family. These are my friends. And I don't know what to do. Like, Roz is gonna go back to the people who made her after Brightbeak learns to fly and goes and migrates. And he's like, I just, not outright, but implies very, very heavily, I don't know what to do if you leave. You are my friend. And then we have Winter Storm. Great scene. Death things come into play in that one too. They're trying to save all the animals from this storm. They don't save everyone. We get to see a scene where they find someone. Like, we don't get to see it, but we see them finding this burrow of someone, but they're not. But Roz just shakes her head like, they're not here with us anymore. And it's so good. I love it. And then they save as many animals as they can, get them back to Roz's home, and then gets them all to call a truce. And it's like, no one's gonna eat each other while we are in this house. Am I understood? And then they make it through the winter, and now all of these animals trust her. But then, because in a moment of doubting her belonging on this island, missing a Brightbeak so heavily, and she activates her return beacon. I don't remember what she calls it, but it's a beacon to call a ship to come get her so that she can go back to the factory. In a moment, she activated that and then thought better of it, stayed. So they come after her. Then we get some form of villain, which I love that we get some kind of villain in this story. We haven't had a whole lot of villains in Disney movies. Like, I never watched Turning Red. I don't care to. I don't want to. I have heard nothing but horrible things. Turning Red didn't have a villain, really. Actually, like, not a real villain. Encanto didn't have a real villain. The live action remakes I don't count because the villain already existed and they were not really done justice. Encanto, we don't count him as a villain because really he wasn't a real villain. He was just fed up with everyone, and then he found some dark magic and went, hey, just shut up for a minute, guys. I'm so done. And he was not done well, and Asha was more of a, oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm not getting into the rant about Wish again. Link in the description. Anyway. We actually got a villain. Only for like the last 20 minutes to half hour of the movie, but we got an actual villain, and they were creepy. It was another robot. And they talk all cheerful because their job is to put the subject at ease when they take them. But she's so, it's so creepy because you know her intentions are not good and you know she is not a good robot. And then she has the voice where it's very much fake cheerful, and oh gosh, it was so creepy. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I loved it. And so then we have the animals fighting to save Roz and fighting off robots, and it's great. This cool, action-packed, triumphant battle at the end. And then just a depressing ending because Roz chooses to go back to her creators to stop them from sending more robots to them, and promises that she'll come back someday. It actually sucks so much. I hate it. We end with hope. We end with hope because Brightbeak goes back to find her in the dome, and she shows recognition, and I'm so glad we end with hope, but it's I also appreciate that we don't get a fully happy ending. That doesn't happen in children's movies like ever anymore. It's such a bittersweet ending. It's so good. I love this movie so much. It might be my favorite movie of the year. This year has felt kind of long, so I don't actually remember all the movies I watched this year, but it might be my favorite. It tops Beetlejuice. It tops Freedom Writers. It definitely tops Dune. Like Dune 2 was wonderful, but this tops Dune. I'm literally blanking on the other things. I love it so much. It's so good. I still have Wicked coming in the next month, but I don't actually think Wicked will top this. Like, I love Wicked with a passion, and I can't wait to see it on screen. But this will probably still be at the top because it's fully original and it's done super well, and it is an animated children's movie that allows dark themes, and I love it so much. So, yeah, I think that's it. I have to stop because I'm just gonna start repeating myself and ranting about things, and I really don't want to get into the dark themes rant again. So, overall, love this movie so much. Like 10 out of 10. The animation is beautiful. The music is awesome. I love the music. I love the story. I love the characters. I love everything that's happening. I love the world they're in. I love that we get a villain and that they're creepy and disconcerting. I love it. Yep, those are my thoughts. My many thoughts. I could go on, but I won't. If you would like to continue to discuss this with me, please do so in the comments. I know this is a newer movie, so there's not a lot of you that have seen this, but please discuss this with me. I would love that. Along with it, you can drop any other thoughts that you all have in the comments as well. I post videos on this channel on Saturdays at the moment. I'll let you know when that changes, hopefully New Year. And then on the audiobook channel on Thursdays. I will see you all next time.